CBS 6 News at 6 starts with a breaking news alert.
It was one of the most shocking tragedies of 2023. Now we're learning startling new details about the events surrounding a deadly graduation day shooting in Richmond. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Janine Samuels.
And I'm Bill Fitzgerald, live in Monroe Park. CBS 6 and the Richmond Times-Dispatch went to court to force Richmond Public Schools to release a report which contains the findings of a third-party investigation into last year's Huguenot High School graduation ceremony right here at the Altria Theater, just steps from where I'm standing. Now, here are three major revelations. The Huguenot graduate who was killed, Sean Jackson, was allowed to attend the ceremony without proper vetting or consideration of the safety and security concerns associated with his attendance. The school system's own threat assessment policy and its guidance were seemingly ignored, despite multiple voiced concerns from the victim's mother over the last several years to school officials. In addition, there was minimal security inside and outside this theater, which became an issue when the shooting began and people started to run for their lives. Now, we have team coverage of all of the elements of this developing story tonight. In just a moment, our Elizabeth Holmes will take an in-depth look at the on-site security breakdown. And Crime Insider John Burkett speaks exclusively with one of the survivors. But we start tonight with Tyler Lane, who testified on behalf of our effort to make this report public. And Tyler, the investigation seems to show systemic failure on multiple levels.
Yeah, that's right, Bill. The findings here in my hand, there are dozens of pages. They show that Huguenot High School staff who allowed that student who was shot and killed to attend the ceremony that day, they knew that there were several really big and significant safety concerns surrounding his participation. However, this report notes that there were several failures to adhere to policies and procedures that are in place that are supposed to be keeping students safe. Now in the public's hands is the Richmond School Board's third-party investigation report into the June 6 Huguenot High School graduation shooting, which claimed the lives of graduate Sean Jackson and his stepfather. Several others were injured. The school district only releasing these findings after a judge ordered them to, siding with CBS 6 and the Richmond Times-Dispatch in our lawsuit.
It's clear that there were some missteps.
Jackson was a homebound student at the time, meaning he was not permitted to be in school buildings or at school-sponsored events per policy. He was homebound due to the threat of neighborhood violence, and numerous staff, including his counselor and principal, were very aware of safety and security issues surrounding the student. In previous communications, Jackson's mother told staff and Superintendent Jason Camrus that their home was shot up by students in Huguenot, but central office staff never referred this information to security personnel. 4 months before the shooting, his mother told the counselor after Jackson was allowed into the Huguenot school building for a test, "I thought he would be isolated. He was in class with people who literally tried to kill him." Then, just days before the shooting, his mother asked the counselor if he should participate in graduation rehearsal or if he would just be squeezed in the day of. The counselor replied, "I will just squeeze him in if you feel that it's too dangerous." No threat assessment was ever conducted prior to June 6th, and those who did have knowledge of safety concerns kept that to themselves and did not act on it, per the investigation. Despite Superintendent Camrus's initial report saying that the counselor approved Jackson's attendance on behalf of the principal, investigators found no evidence to support that statement. The report says that the principal had no direct involvement with Jackson's participation, and he was described as checked out and took a laissez-faire approach to managing the building, according to the RPS chief academic officer. Ultimately, the report says that the students' participation in graduation occurred without any consideration of or adherence to required authorizations and without proper vetting and consideration of the safety concerns that were known by several members of Huguenot High School. Here's reaction from school board members Jonathan Young and Kenya Gibson.
our first and foremost responsibility has always, above all else, has got to be to protect our students and our teachers. This report demonstrates we did not do that. Not only did we not do that, but the school board of the city of Richmond attempted to sweep this under the rug, to cover it up.
The response that we've gotten has been, it simply falls short. Obviously, the district did take some steps in terms of the next graduations that happened, but ultimately, I'm eager to get more definitive direction in terms of how can we make sure this doesn't happen again.
Earlier in the day, before the report was released, CBS 6 tried to ask Superintendent Jason Camrus and School Board Chair Stephanie Rizzi about it. Mr. Camrus, we were wondering if we just get a comment on the report being released today.
As I said yesterday, I welcome the release of the report, and we'll have a full statement when it's released at 1 o'clock.
I'm going to just go with what the superintendent is going to release later today, okay?
And the superintendent and the school board chair statement reads in part, our shared commitment is to learn from this tragedy and continue to improve in order to further safeguard our students and staff. They say they've already made multiple improvements as far as policy and procedure changes moving forward. That full statement is on WTVR.com. Bill?
Actually go back.
All right, Tyler, now you have filed multiple Freedom of Information Act requests before, and this time you ended up in court. What was that process like?
Well, Bill, honestly, it was a long process. It took a lot of time, energy, resources, lawyers. I mean, you have to imagine I submitted my first FOIA request in the beginning of November. Here we are mid-January, and we're finally getting this report. So it took a lot of time, but it was something that we were happy to do because we do this job because we believe that our public and our community that we serve has a right to know, and they deserve to see this information for themselves.
Well, and Tyler, you were actually in court testifying in this case. What was that like?
Well, I mean, it was certainly a unique experience, something I've never done before. I was in the stand for almost 2 hours, and we basically just outlined the facts here. I walked the court through all of my emails back and forth with the school board. We showed them all the FOIA requests that we had sent. We watched the school board meetings, and we presented our case that this report was never intended to be kept from the public, and that our community deserved these answers and this information, to which obviously the judge agreed.
And briefly, Tyler, you're now going to go back to work seeing these same officials. Presumably no awkwardness there after this whole process played out?
No, Bill, I don't think so. I mean, FOIA is just a basic function of our government, and I believe that we'll just continue moving forward, getting information, getting records like this so that we can keep our public informed.
All right, thank you for that, Tyler, and for your good reporting. Now to the on-site security on graduation day. Now, the report says there was sparse staffing inside the Altria and only a handful of police officers and firefighters outside the building. This despite more than 3,600 people in attendance. And as our Elizabeth Holmes tells us, there are conflicting reports about the use of metal detectors that day. Liz?
Bill, that's right. There are three big things that I want to talk about. First, this report says that there was no discussion about any kind of safety plans or procedures once people actually left the Altria Theater. And as you said, there were some conflicting reports about whether or not the metal detectors in there worked and even where they were. Now, the Altria Theater and its contracting company, RMC, they did not comply with this review. They did not give any information, allow anyone to talk about this. So that is posing more questions about what actually happened on this day. This is the breakdown of security responsibility for Huguenot High School's graduation at the Altria Theater. According to the report, the theater's contracted security team, RMC, would take the lead on personnel and security equipment inside the building. Then Richmond Public Schools safety and security team would be a second layer. Then Richmond Police and Fire would come third. Page 5 of the document says the school's 2 school resource officers, who may have had knowledge of any possible safety concerns with students, were not working at the graduation. 19 RPS care and safety workers were in attendance, but were not permitted to conduct searches or control metal detectors, which was RMC's job. 5 off-duty police officers and 3 off-duty fire and EMS staff were hired by RPS, meant to serve as additional support for the roughly 3,600 people who were there. According to the report, the school system did not have a director of safety and security while planning graduation. That role was filled June 7th, the day after the shooting. There were 3 different entrances to the Altria on graduation day: a front entrance for visitors, a graduate entrance, and a VIP entrance. Page 15 says the VIP entrance would be the only one that did not have metal detectors, but would be staffed to check credentials. However, it is, quote, unknown if anyone was posted at the VIP entrance. On that same page, a comment by Assistant Principal Kevin Monroe, who said he went through the graduates entrance wearing a belt and carrying his cell phone, said the metal detector, quote, should have went off, but didn't. The report goes on to say that there were sightings of students coming into the building late and conflicting reports of if they went through metal detectors or not. Student Sean Jackson, who was shot and killed outside the theater after graduation, was reportedly late. One interview saying that he, quote, probably just found a spot and jumped in line. Much remains unclear about if the metal detectors worked or where they were, as well as how Jackson got into the building, as the report says the Altria did not allow investigators to walk through the building nor agree to provide video footage or any kind of staff to be interviewed. Now, we reached out to the Altria Theater. Again, they contract with RMC for security. We wanted to see if they would comment on this report, and we have not heard back from them at this time. Bill?
All right, thanks, Elizabeth. Now, the release of the report coincides with another story we've been working on virtually since that tragic day here outside the Altria. It's the story of another victim of that shooting who barely survived. Now, Crime Insider John Burkett joins me now with a preview of his story that you'll see tonight at 11. And John, it is a powerful story.
It is, Bill. And what was supposed to be an hour or two of celebrating with his family, Desmond Johnson has turned into months of rehab for him and his 7-year-old boy. Out of 7 people shot, 2 died. Desmond Johnson, a Dinwiddie business owner, at the graduation in support of a family member, had life-threatening injuries. I interviewed him exclusively in his journey of rehabbing at VCU Sheltering Arms. He says June 6th continues to haunt him and his son.
As I was laying on the ground protecting him, I had him in front of me. One shot hit me in the back of the neck and one shot hit me across my face. Senseless, man, how kids just go out there and they just shoot into crowds.
Coming up on CBS 6 News at 11, Desmond's recovery journey and what his lawyers have to say about a judge ruling to release the third-party investigation. That's tonight at 11, Bill.
All right, John, look forward to that story. Thank you for that. Now, this afternoon, I spoke to defense attorney Ed Riley, who was not involved in this case. He said he didn't have enough time to analyze the Sands-Anderson report, but that a quick reading reveals it could impact the criminal prosecution because it lays out plenty of facts, which he points out that's what a Commonwealth's attorney deals with. He also said it's possible it opens RPS up to some liability, but he said a shooting that occurred outside in public is harder to assign blame for. Now, if you would like to read the full report for yourself, we've got that available on our website, WTVR.com. You'll also find the latest on this story on the free CBS 6 News app. For now, though, reporting live from Monroe Park, I'm Bill Fitzgerald. Janine, let's send it back inside to you.